The Creature Files, presented by the Department of Mythical Wildlife, with your hosts, author Todd Calgi Gallicano, Christopher McClary at the Sightings Desk, and resident skeptic Vic Afsahi. So sit back and listen as we report the latest news and up-to-date information about the mythical creatures living among us. The Creature Files. It might just save your life.
Greetings and welcome to The Creature Files, the show that's all about mythical creatures, and that includes cryptids and creatures from folklore, whatever might be lurking in the woods or in the waters or in the skies above. I'm your host, Todd Calgi Gallicano, the author of the Sam Lennon Adventure Series from the files of the Department of Mythical Wildlife, and you can visit us online at mythicalwildlife.com. Now it's time to say hello to my co-hosts, Chris McClary at the Sightings Desk and our resident not-so-skeptic, Vic Afsahi. Hey, guys.
Good to see you, Todd. You too, Vic.
Good to see you too, guys.
Okay, on to my background. As many of you know, every book in the Sam Lennon Adventure series features a few of our national parks. And to honor that on the podcast, my background will always be a national park. Today should be an easy guess for you guys. What do you think?
Zion?
Vic?
Yosemite.
Yosemite it is, Vic. And
I've never been right.
So the website, according to the Yosemite National Park website, it's not just a great valley, but a shrine to human foresight, the strength of granite, the power of glaciers, the persistence of life, and the tranquility of the High Sierra. First protected in 1864, Yosemite National Park is best known for its waterfalls, but within its nearly 1,200 square miles, you can find deep valleys, grand meadows, ancient giant sequoias, a vast wilderness area, and much more. It is known as one of the world's great rock climbing areas and includes the famous El Capitan. There's also camping, stargazing, hiking, fishing. The options are endless. So if you have a chance, definitely check it out. All right, let's get over to the Sightings Desk with Chris McClary. What do you have for us today, Chris?
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, this is a really exciting development because here we have a gentleman. He's 77 years old. His name's Rod Mitchie. Now, he's a skipper on the Jacobite Queen, which is a tour boat on the Loch Ness in northern Scotland. Now, this is very interesting because I was there in 2017 and I visited Urquhart Castle in northern Scotland, and that's right on the loch. And I took that tour on the Jacobite Queen. That was in 2017. Now, this image was captured in 2015, and he wasn't going to come out except there were a couple of other stories that compelled him to bring his. A couple other images surfaced in October, and it compelled him to come out with his story. So what we have is a sonar image, and he's saying he has gone and worked on this lake for on the loch for 30 years, and he's had sonar and he's looked before. He has never seen anything in this particular spot where this thing shows up, and later, when he went back, it was gone, and it is sizable because we're talking about an area of the loch that's over 700 feet deep, and there is something you can see in this photo. You can see something that is down there, and it's large. When you look at it in scale, it is large, and then it wasn't there again. So I don't know what to make of it, but man, this is some really compelling. I mean, first of all, he's been on the loch for so long. And for him to be spotting this and then bring it to our attention, I don't know. I'm finding this to be pretty interesting thing to look into.
Vic, what do you think?
It is indeed some sort of sonar contact with a blob that seems to be either attached to the bottom of the surface, and then in another image, it's floating above the surface. But like many other sightings of the cryptid paranormal variety, it's unclear.
Yes, it is sort of inconclusive in that regard, but it is another interesting little piece of evidence that there is something lurking in Loch Ness. Obviously, this has been going on for quite some time, and there's just always these sort of images, and now we have these sonar images. So it's interesting. Hopefully, eventually, we're going to get something really clear, clear as day, and Vic won't be able to complain anymore. Now it's time for the creature feature, and today we're headed to Florida. This is a creature that's appeared in the Selkie of San Francisco, book 2 of the Sam Lennon Adventure series. It's the Skunk Ape. It's a bipedal humanoid akin to the Bigfoot that's been reported in the southeastern United States, most of the time in Florida. Now, there's some confusion over its name. Some say it's called the skunk ape because of white stripe on its black fur. Others say it's because of the odor it gives off, which is attributed to the methane released by its swampy home. Most reports say it's tall, over 6 feet, has black or rusty colored fur, and glowing red eyes. And when I say reports, I mean multiple sightings. The swamp ape has not been a shy cryptid. Much like Bigfoot, it's been seen a lot. According to the folklore of the native people, the Seminole, there was a creature called Esti Kapkaki, a name which roughly translates as cannibal giant. It was smelly and big and kept itself well hidden. There were reports of a similar creature to what would become known as the skunk ape that go back to 1818. But the first contemporary sightings are from the 1960s and 70s. And these included police officers who spotted it along with hikers and residents. In 2000, a woman sent photographs of what many believe is a skunk ape. There have also been videos that have come out. So is the skunk ape real, or is it just some wild animal like a bear? Well, let's talk to an eyewitness and researcher. All right, we are really excited to welcome Stacy Brown Jr. onto the show. He's the writer and director of Skunk Ape Lives, an incredible documentary that's available on Amazon Prime and other streaming services. And Stacy Brown Jr. is a man of many hats. He hails from Wakulla County, Florida. When he's not out hunting the elusive creature known as Bigfoot or acting or directing movies, he's sitting on his porch writing music with his friends. Thank you, Stacy, so much for joining us tonight.
No problem, man. I appreciate you letting me be here.
Tell us how you got into cryptozoology.
Probably just like everybody else did. I've heard 100 different people talk about In Search Of, but I wasn't born then, So I got Unsolved Mysteries, and that's where my interest really peaked in it. I seen Dave Shealy on Unsolved Mysteries, and I was like, whoa, there's actual Bigfoot in Florida, because I'd seen, Unsolved Mysteries, and they talked about the Patterson film and all that stuff. But then to see, the skunk ape, it was in Florida, then it really became a big thing to me, So I've still got friends you could talk to today that will tell you, like, I was 6 years old and we were out looking for these things. I honestly can say I've been doing it for that long. So yeah, just, sitting around with my dad. He also kind of pushed it, he was really into UFOs and Bigfoot. So like he would take me to the public library and I would check out books, on the subject. I was really into it when I was young.
You had this, and we watched the movie, you had this extraordinary experience with your dad and the skunk ape. We want to talk a little bit about that for viewers. We don't give too much away, right? Because we want everyone to go watch the movie, because it's a great part of the film when we hear a little bit about that experience you had.
The thing about the film is my dad was filming, he had the thermal, but I had the little Sony night shot. So you get to see my father become a believer on camera. And it's quite the thing, so that made that one cool. But basically what had happened, I had seen one in November of the previous year. Okay. And it changed my life, so I at that point knew they were real. After diving into the online Bigfoot community, I was like, okay, that's why these things haven't been found yet. Everybody's arguing and fighting with each other. So I, went into it myself, and I can't remember what it was. Something happened. My dad was going to be at the house by himself. I think my mom, for whatever reason, went to stay with my sister in Tallahassee for the night. But anyways, he hit me up and asked me if I wanted to go Bigfooting that night. He had just beat cancer, and really, it was more or less a way, I guess, from his point of view. I don't know that he actually, from the look on his face, you can see it. I don't think he really believed that Bigfoot, skunk ape was a thing. It was more or less a way to go hang out with your son. So we went to Torreya State Park Tuesday night, and there was nobody there. And so to go to the campsite, Rock Creek campground, which unfortunately you can no longer visit. A Hurricane Michael come through and absolutely devastated the place. Anyways, we go down there. We're setting up. It's a mile hike down into the woods, and we're cooking. We're listening to music, just hanging out, and we started hearing the knocks. We heard a few knocks, and then the last knock we heard was kind of like a grunt before the knock, almost like it was forcefully doing. It's like, you know what I mean? So at that point, we cut the music up all the way, and we headed out. The trail there, palmettos are about this much taller over your head, and I was taller than my dad. So for a little while, we were able to slip out, and not be undetected, or not be detected. My thought on it is that we didn't sneak out there onto them. That anything we did, because we were walking without the light. I think my dad had just a little red light that he had cupped in his hand, to see the ground. But I know he switched the thermal to black heat so that he could see the trail. So this is in May. Okay, this is springtime. The snakes have started to crawl, and Rock Creek is a snake haven. That place, with the way it's set up, how the creek, the fingers of the creek right there at the film site meet in together. It's really wet. There's a lot of moccasins and a lot of copperheads. So we didn't want to have that problem. So he's got a black heat, because on the black heat, when he was looking down at the trail actually looked like snow almost. You get the rest of the stuff, and then this part was just kind of like white, so you could see it. And I was most of the walk holding on to the back of his shoulder, because I couldn't see. I'm watching the viewfinder on the night shot. Okay, so if that bright lights, anybody's used them, you can't actually know what's going on around you. You're having to lock on that because you burned your eyes. It takes a few seconds to really adjust. So we're just walking. We're hearing things on both sides of the trail. To our left, to our right. Sounds like things are running. Armadillos have this really unique sound that they make when they crawl, and it makes them sound like somebody's actually walking. So I don't know how they do it, but when they're moving through the bushes, for the most part, a lot of times they'll sound like they're bipedal. So we wasn't putting too much stock into the things that we were hearing. Looking back on it, there were like 3 or 4 of them is what I'm assuming. But anyways, we're walking. We turn down this trail, what we think is the trail. We end up finding out later it's not, that it's a game trail, because we heard some heavy footfalls coming down the ridge, right? So like when we came across this bridge, and we made the left into that bottom, but the trail was a little bit higher, and then there was a ridge that come up there. So I know everybody thinks Florida's just like flat land, but this area is the highest elevation of a whopping 268 feet at its peak. So it's almost like just like hills. Like it looks a lot like Georgia, North Georgia, but just not as steep. Not as tall, but a lot for the most part. You're not going to get this terrain anywhere else in Florida. So we hear it. He sees something on a tree. At first, he thinks it's a coon. It's just sticking out of one side. And then it goes back in. It's sticking out of the other side. It goes back in. Then all of a sudden, it's sticking out of both sides. So he thinks it's 2 raccoons. And then it sits there for a second, I guess. And he steps up and like kicks a palmetto or something. I remember he hit something with his foot. But anyways, and this thing like takes off. Like it comes out at that point. And then the rest is on the movie, I guess. You know, you can see what happened. You actually get to see what happened. You know, the facial reaction was because I've edited the two, you know, together. So it was really cool, man. It was looking back on it, you know. I guess it was like winning the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
This was the second time you had seen the Skunk Ape, and right, because you had seen it earlier, and then you went and then you saw him again, or was this the first time? This was the second time, right?
Well, I didn't see it, so I don't count this as a time that I
Oh,
saw.
gotcha. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's right.
I had no idea what he was running from.
Ah,
I just hear, we gotta go, get your gun. Like my dad's an Army Ranger.
mhm.
Okay, there's been very few times he's told me to get my gun. And you know, it's always something serious when it's get your gun. He don't toss that out. You know what I mean? It's not just something that's you know, just says a lot. I knew right then something was up, but I thought it was a cat because I'm scared of big cats. You know, bears not really a thing. You know, people actually fight the bears here because they don't weigh a lot. But you know, it was well, we're running and he's panicking. And he's like, it was looking at us. It's looking at us. I don't want to spoil it, all the things that he was saying, but yeah, I don't count this as me seeing one. But this was my second like big encounter. You know what I'm saying? Because I had November 6, 2011. I had seen one 12 miles away on the same creek system.
Okay.
So that's what was important about that. The location we ended up where I seen mine, we started researching that spot, did that spot for like 7 years. It was the same creek system that my dad got the footage. The thing that was cool about it is like the Rangers were down with this. They loved it. I knew them all, you know. It was actually a problem running into them because you'd have to talk to them for 30 minutes or so. You know, it's like, I got stuff to do, but I know. Like, but it was also cool because they liked me. So they would like, they'd see me with my stuff. They'd be like, hey, come on, we'll drive you out there. I'd be like, all right, awesome. I ain't got to walk. You know what I mean? And they carry all my stuff out there. So, but they would give me Bigfoot reports. They would have to go out and get people at night that stayed out into the primitive camps like Rock Bluff or the Torreya Challenge. The problem with the challenge was there wasn't no service out there. And then, you know, Rock Creek Campground. Rock Creek, they got where we got the footage. They came and got people a lot. And then they would talk about it to the Rangers that it was like, hey, there's somebody out there walking around. You know, there's somebody out there messing with people. And they would give me all these reports, call me the next day, you know, send me pictures when they found tracks and stuff like that. It was a really cool system that I had going on with them before Hurricane Michael.
Okay, so let's talk about your movie. Now, what spurred you to decide to make the documentary? Obviously, you had the experience, but what else? You know, how did you get the idea to sort of just start making this documentary?
Well, I had started a production company and made this movie, Creatures. It had Russell Accord from Expedition Bigfoot, you know, and we had a bunch of other people, Ed Brown and all these other people who were, you know, in the Bigfoot world. They come around and we made this movie, but we didn't get to release it because of the landowner. And so then I made a Roswell documentary, and me and my buddy were like, why don't we just do a Skunk Ape, man? Like, you got so many people you can talk to, you know? And I was like, it's not a bad idea. So we did it. I made it. I showed it at the IBC in Kennewick, Washington. There's like 700 people there when I screened it. All good reviews, but I just didn't like it. So I sat on it for 2 years, and then I went to Santa Monica to the American Film Market, and I ran into one of my buddies who was a producer on Finding Bigfoot. And I said, hey, bud, will you watch this movie? Tell me what you think. I said, I've like hit a wall, you know. I mean, people like it, but to me, it's just like, okay. You know what I mean? It could be way better. But I had like a writer's block almost, and he watched it. And then like 3 months later, I never thought he watched it. And like 3 months later, he just hits me up out of the blue. He's like, all right, hey, let's talk. And then so when he started talking to me, he's like, make it like Unsolved Mysteries, because like the earlier cuts, there would be like B-roll with like me narrating, and it didn't really sound right. And he's like, no, you got to walk it through, you know, you got to be on the screen, blah, 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 make it like Unsolved Mysteries. And I was like, oh, geez. You know what I mean? So we made it like that, and then we put it out.
Well, now let me ask you this: did you have any sightings or strange experiences while you were making the documentary?
So yeah, while we were filming the recreation for the ranger that runs one over. Okay, when we were filming that recreation, something walked across the road in the distance. And then also when we were filming the Ocheesy Wild Man, the part where the Bigfoot's captured, we were filming that. As soon as we killed the generators, there were like 2 super loud knocks just, you know, maybe 30, 40 yards into the woods.
So the eyewitnesses you got were they're fantastic. Now, first I want to commend your ability to get all of those interviews together for a documentary. And they all are so credible, and they really make you think. And they're just not 2 stories. I mean, these are numerous credible accounts. That said, besides your own Skunk Ape sighting, which one did you find like the most credible? The one that you would point to for someone that's just sort of learning about the Skunk Ape, and you say, listen, you got to hear about this sighting and this experience, because it's pretty amazing.
Okay, so if I had to do that and I was using my own belief on this, like there's one on there that I know is 100% accurate because I was there. The other one that I know is, and that I will personally vouch for, even though it's the most odd, has to be the one with the ranger. Okay, mainly because I know that guy. I've known that dude since I was like 4 years old.
Wow.
Okay, and like I was, you know, knee high to a tree stump, and he was my age, you know, in his probably 30s, so it probably couldn't have been long after. And I know it's probably one of the harder ones to believe on it because the guy's face is blurred out, and then because you have the government coming into it. But legitimately, that guy has no reason to lie to me. This dude ain't that person. You know what I'm saying? Besides that, okay, so like if we take that out of the mix, let me think 1 second, because that's trying to think of all of them. I would probably say Marty and Jim. I know those guys really well, but if I had to show it to somebody for one thing, it would be the Rangers, just because it encompasses the whole thing. Why don't we find a body? You know, it answers point A to point B on that, you know.
Now, what do you think of the evidence that most people are aware of? So like the photographs from 2000, I guess it was, as well as that there was a video that came out in 2013, but that was in Mississippi, and some say that was a skunk ape. What do you think? What do you make of all of that?
You know, there's a lot of rumor around the 2000 Sarasota Mayaca skunk ape photos. You know, a lot of people say that they know that was at Ripley's, or, you know, it's a orangutan, but I'm interviewing people now for my follow-up to the Skunk Ape Lives, and some of them people describe that creature. You know what I mean? And these guys are telling the truth. With the films, like with the last question, dude, I talked to so many people. Those people that every person that I put in my film, I'm vouching for. I guess if I had to give one any kind of evidence, is the Lettuce Lake footage.
Okay.
Not you can see it. You see this creature. First of all, you have to appreciate the swamp to know. You have to appreciate in all facets. You got to understand the danger to being in knee-deep water in a cypress swamp in South Florida. Like like alligators, water moccasins, especially that time of year that it was filmed. You know what I'm saying? These are issues. And so now you've got a guy out here in the swamp in a good costume in like knee-deep water. And this water is a color. It's darker than sweet tea. You know what I mean? You ain't seeing through it. And then on top of that, it slaps down into the water and pulls out a fish. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, you could have set it up, but I know the swamps very well. I was looking at being in that same situation of like, we were trying to get some dry land to this place we were going to go last weekend, but we had to tread through like up to waist deep water for about 100 yards before we got to it. You couldn't get the boat no closer. And even at that, you come across the wrong alligator. Most alligators are going to run, but some of them are 13 and 14 feet long. Those guys ain't going nowhere. So like to pull something like the Lettuce Lake footage off, I think is very dumb. For what? Like, what is the purpose? Why would you lay your life on the line to do that? That's just what doesn't make sense to me. And then you see the Myaka Skunk Ape footage from 2013 where it's crossing the field, and you think from looking at it, that's just a field. No, that's actually a floodplain. Okay. And like Myaka River State Park, there's so many alligators. Why would you be in that spot? That's the one spot you don't want to be in. And they're like, it's a man in a suit. I find that hard to believe. If you're wanting to hoax and you're wanting to see somebody or somebody to see you, you're going to be close to the road. You're not 400 yards away. You're not up some creek in Lettuce Lake where you may scare a kayaker if they come by in the next 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? Things don't add up, man. There's always a slight chance, that happened. But like, when does it become mathematically impossible?
Yeah. Are there, for our viewers, that if they're out and about, are there distinct signs of the skunk ape that they should be aware of as to avoid maybe an unwanted encounter? Are there certain signals? We talked about the knocking. Is there anything else that might be indicative of the skunk ape?
If you smell death, like rotting flesh, and when you move, it follows you, then you want to figure out what you can do. And unless you want to have an encounter, these things smell like a rotting animal.
Okay.
Like I've unfortunately had the pleasure of finding somebody who had passed away for like 2 weeks. They smell like that. I'll never forget that smell as long as I live. We smelled that probably last year sometime. I'd say winter. And it moved. It was the first time I ever believe I actually smelled a skunk ape. It moved down the road with us, and you could hear something in there, so we thought we did. And then when we went back, the smell's gone. You know what I mean? And then a further place down the trail, we got that same smell again. And then we had activity. Somebody got hit in the hand with a rock. So it's the only time I ever think I smelled one. But it smells about as close to death as it gets.
Now, what do you say to the skeptics? So the people that say, "Oh, it's a bear," or some other creature. What do you say to them when they say those kinds of things?
Okay, so to the skeptics, let's say or let's just say me. Let's say I'm your good friend. I'm telling you, I saw one. I didn't see a bear. Okay, like let's take that off the table. I've been in the woods enough. It was clear enough. I know what I was looking at, and it wasn't a bear. So, you want to sit down here with me and call me a liar to my face? You don't, because it's possible. Because it's possible. It's possible that I'm not lying. And I understand how hard it is to, buy that there's 7-8 foot tall, hairy man thing roaming around the swamps for no reason, just coming up and looking on people and stuff. I understand how that sounds. Trust me. I'm not dumb. I'm not crazy to a degree. You know what I mean? I can't draw a check for it. So I'm not. It comes down to whether you're calling me and this police officer and this lawyer and this baker and this dude that works at NASA, this dude drives the school bus. You calling us liars? Or are you so confident in yourself that you're going to tell me that I was mistaken? Because we can, like I said, we could take that off the table. You could take the police officer seeing a bear off the table. You could take all of us. It was either a Bigfoot or I'm lying, and that's the only thing it is. So do you want to call me a liar? And people don't. Mm-hmm. They just, they're, I don't know if it's I don't know why things like this are so hard for people to believe. I don't know at what point they listen to somebody to let somebody put in their mind that we know everything that's going on our planet or in our universe. Where do they get this? Sometimes you listen to science too much. Okay, so like Todd Calgi, a friend of mine, he's a molecular geneticist, gives me some percentage of like 0.0000010% chance that this thing is real. But I believe you, so I'm going to do I want to help you out. If you find anything cool ever, call me. He doesn't, it's like even the scientists would tell you there's a % chance it could be real, because can't everybody be lying?
Yeah.
I've got enough evidence, especially in my film. I've got enough evidence that if I was trying to convict somebody for murder, you could put them away. We do it every day. We put people in prison for circumstantial evidence. Yet and still, we can't fund. The government will not come off no money to not to me, but to some biologists or something. Give somebody some money so they can go in there, because it's going to take a long time. It's going to take 2-3 years probably in the woods, team on the ground. Give somebody some money and let them look. Like there's enough evidence that we have here that not everybody's lying. You know what I'm saying? The things we found, the stories we have, the track evidence, pictures, videos, audio. Audio is really one of the most telling things.
Okay, now it's time to bring in our co-hosts, Chris and Vic, and see if they have any questions. Chris, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. First of all, Stacy, thank you so much for being on the show. Man, I'm really enjoying just the way you communicate, what you have to say. It's fascinating. You're a great storyteller as well. You really know how to, engage the listener. And the film was awesome. And I just urge anyone out there who's interested in this stuff, you've got to go on Amazon and watch Skunk Ape Lives. No matter what you've seen in the past, what you've been exposed to or researched, I'm telling you, when we got to the point of the film where he drops, you see it, nothing prepares you for that. I mean, I got chills. It was just awesome. I just really enjoyed it. So thank you for putting that together. And I'll tell you, one question came up for me while we were listening to you. I'm curious about this, and having been, around, been around monkeys in the wild some, and like in Cambodia, you'll go out to, where the temples are. And the monkeys are there. They're all, they're tricksters. They'll like steal people's cameras. They'll steal your food if you're not looking. They'll take your hat right off your head. And then you go to the zoo and you see how apes and orangutans will behave for the people that are watching. And so I guess my question to you is, in all your experience, you were saying you guys were out one day and somebody got hit in the hand with a rock. Do you believe that this species has a trickster mindset or a trickster element to it, to where it might just sort of enjoy being spotted, but, you know, every so often be elusive and kind of getting off on knowing that it's sort of a trickster in our world and it's sort of messing with us?
Okay, so since we're talking about Bigfoot, I guess we can go down the rabbit hole, right? Y'all want to go down the rabbit hole?
Yes.
Okay.
Always.
Okay, so I tell everybody, I know enough about Bigfoot, Skunk Ape to know that I don't know anything. 110%. I am still learning. Every time I think I know something, you know, it turns out no, there was more to it. I'm always left with more questions than I have answers. So at one point, if you're looking at it as a physical being, an ape, flesh and blood, you know, as people put it, yeah, you know, I would think there is that. And especially from what I've seen, there's that aspect of, you know, being curious. You got to think, you're in the woods all day. You can't go over there and put on Workaholics, drink you a few beers, you know, or nothing like that. You have to find entertainment. And, oh, wow, look, all of a sudden out here in the middle of nowhere, there's two middle-aged white dudes over here in the woods. But no, seriously, there's just people out in the woods. So yeah, they go up and mess with them, you know, maybe try to scare them. Maybe they want to scare them away. Apes are very territorial. So, you know, they in a lot of ways exhibit that behavior. Now, it depends on what you think these things are, you know, because to me, they're, like I said, I've had so much stuff happen with like lights, and like when my girlfriend was hit in the hand with a rock, there wasn't nothing there, bro. And you didn't throw that rock through that brush from like further than I could see on my thermal. And so that night we actually had watched one on the thermal. You know, and it's like there's always something about it, because we've had these encounters where we viewed them, but you didn't hit record, or the cable wasn't working, or the card was full, or there was no card at all in this instance. So you're watching it. David's watching it. It's there. We hear something that's really close. We turn, and then it's gone. And it's like, there ain't no way you just took off through them woods and you didn't make no sound. Yeah, we didn't hear nothing. And, you know, a lot of people will tell you that. It was on us before we knew it was there.
Now, when you talked a little bit about the lights, so have you experienced that where they have some, there's some aspect where things go weird or wonky, or there's lights or something like that? Is that?
Well, see, at that place where my dad got the footage, okay, mm-hmm. And then the Bridges house where we researched along that creek system. I started out in this field thinking this was a flesh and blood animal that I could kill. I'm very mm-hmm. confident in myself. I was going to go out there and I was going to put this whole thing to rest. Okay. But there's better hunters than myself who have tried this, and they know they don't come back with no evidence neither. You know, they don't know about to end up shooting one of these things. And then I couldn't ignore the lights we were having. Like the instance, you would see this light out the corner of your eye, like it's there, just like my light is right there. My light is right there. You know, I can see them right now, even though I'm looking at the camera. But then if I would actually turn and look at it, the thing wouldn't be there. Now, in all fairness, we pulled a map of the magnetic anomalies from the USGS, Geological Survey or whatever, in the state of Florida. And the one red spot as redder than the devil's bottom, was right where we're talking about. So at that place, you had a lot of, I guess it would be almost Skinwalker Ranch-esque
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, UFO sightings, but these lights, these orbs, and then the Bigfoot encounters would happen right after. So are the Bigfoots drawn to that stuff? Are the Bigfoots part of that stuff? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
You hear a lot of times about Bigfoot sightings around a cemetery or around Native American burial mounds and stuff like that, where you're in other places where you have high amounts of paranormal activity. Also have Bigfoot encounters. So it's like, are they one and the same? I myself, as a detective, that's what I will call myself tonight, as a detective, because it's what I'm doing, right? So you can't go in there with a closed mind. Like, the lights and stuff weren't even on the table at the beginning of our research. They came onto the table, without anybody asking them to get there, and now you can't get rid of them. You got to, it's like, hey, we got more stuff where, to be fair to what we're doing, because if you're looking for one thing, if you've got it made up in your mind that man's guilty, then you're going to find stuff for that man to be guilty about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Vic, do you have any questions for Stacy?
Yeah. Thank you so much for this perspective. It's an incredible thing to hear. And watching your documentary, I don't know how the other guys felt, but I didn't expect it to be so well produced. It was very, very well done. And the stories that your interview subjects tell are haunting, and you don't forget it. And it's so interesting. And you can tell that these people, really saw what they saw, and it's impossible to explain. I'm always fascinated by the evidence that sort of surrounds these sightings, like the knocking or the scent and smells and things. And you already described the scent and smell. The knocking, are they like, what do you think? How are they producing that sound, do you think?
And see, that's up for debate. I've heard knocking, it sounded like clapping. They may be clapping, but I just challenge any of our viewers to go out there, walk in the woods, and pick you up a stick that's laying on the ground and smack it up on a tree and see if you get that sound, because you don't. You know what I mean? It sounds like they're taking a baseball bat and hitting the trees with, so they can't be doing it. We were able to emulate it one time. We slapped a hollow cypress tree, and it made it. It made that perfect knock. However, I got a guy on my team who, for whatever reason, can put his thumb in his mouth and pull it out real quick, and it makes this really high-pitched pop that sounds like they're knocking. Bears also do this with their jaw. Okay, bears will make a knocking with their jaw when they're in distress. So the picking up a limb and hitting the tree with it seems a little far-fetched to me. I honestly believe they're popping their jaw, or they're somehow doing it with their mouth, because it's consistent. The sound doesn't waver, and I can't do it back and replicate it without having like a bat. The stuff that's in the forest is just not there. You know what I mean? At least here in Florida. It may be different in North Carolina, but it doesn't take a long time for things to start rotting to where they're not good enough. And you got to figure, if that limb's on the ground, it's already dead. You know what I'm saying? So, like, how are you going to get that perfect, crisp knock? I think the actual picking up of a limb and hitting a tree with it is probably one of the most far-fetched beliefs in the Bigfoot enigma. I don't believe they're doing it with a limb or any kind of wood at all. I think they're doing it with their mouth.
And have you heard any like howling type sounds or calls that would be like more of like a vocal?
Oh yeah. If people subscribe to my YouTube, Bigfoot Stacy, I actually, at the film site, we've recorded some really good audio. one howl actually sounds like a train. We had an expedition, and this kid did a howl. He was a 13-year-old kid, and something just replied to him, and it sounded like classic Bobo. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But we've also got whoops, several whoops, but dude, we've got years of audio. At this point, I'm sitting on like, what do I do with this stuff? What happens to all this stuff once I'm dead?
Yeah.
I know I'm young, but like, people die at all ages. You know what I'm saying? And I've got a lot of it. I got a lot of stories. I got a lot of audio. I got all that mess. And yeah, I try to put it out there for the most part on my YouTube at Bigfoot Stacy, which you can subscribe to right now.
We'll put it up, for,
Yeah,
for our
definitely.
viewers on YouTube. We'll put it up, and then for our podcast listeners, can you say that? Can you say it one more time? And we'll also put it up on the notes pages on the website. But what's the YouTube channel?
Bigfoot Stacy.
Bigfoot Stacy.
Yeah,
Okay,
I just try to say it as many times as I can.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, and do you want to tell us a little bit more about? Like, what do you do besides research these creatures? I know that you're a musician. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been a musician probably since I was about 13, 14. Huge part of my life until I seen a Bigfoot, so I quit. But started it back up here recently. I've got it's like a Southern rock project. We're about to drop our first single. We've got it done. It sounds really good. I hate having to sit on top of it while we figure out what we're going to do with it. But, I play guitar and sing and just songwriter. So it's fun.
So beyond your YouTube channel, is there any place else that people can just follow you, learn more about you?
Yeah, you can follow me on any of the social medias. At Bigfoot Stacy, I'm on everywhere, so it's the same handle. You can just look me up. But yeah, that's about it.
With everything that you've been doing, what is the scariest encounter you've ever had, cryptid or supernatural or otherwise?
Nothing scares you like your first Bigfoot encounter. However, when I was asleep this is probably the time I was scared the worst on anything. I was sleeping in Lizzie Borden's bed.
Oh man.
Okay. Recently. When was that? That was September, end of September. So like she had the house where she committed the murders, her dad's house. Well, then after she got the fortune, she bought this beautiful place called the Maplecroft, and that's where she died. Or that's where she stayed at until she died. And it is the most haunted location I've ever been to. 5:26, okay, in the morning. I'm sleeping in Lizzie Borden's bed. At 5:26 in the morning, my REM pod that I leave on when I go to sleep beside my bed starts going off. Okay. I am super tired. We have been live streaming an event 24/7 for the past 5 days. Okay. I am exhausted. So I grab the antenna so the REM pod is stopped and I let it go. It starts going off again. I'm like, oh man. And I grab it again so to stop, and then it holds off. It doesn't do it no more. So I try to ease back off. And she has this parlor in between, or like next to her room. Beautiful place. Like, dude, it was one of the nicest places I've ever stayed. Definitely felt out of place, but it sounded like something jumped in the middle of the floor. Boom! Like in the foyer or the little doorway, whatever you call that. And so I'm like, oh man. So I roll over and now my REM pod starts going off again. Whee! And it's going off like somebody's grabbing it. I don't know if you know how a REM pod works, but like it's like a theremin. So like the closer you get your hand to it,
okay,
and all these lights will light up. The stronger, the closer the thing is, the more lights that come on.
Now it's called a REM pod?
Yeah, it's called a REM pod. If it wasn't in the truck, I'd show it to you right now. But anyways,
what's the purpose of it?
It's a paranormal tool. Okay, you set it up and you leave it, and then if like an energy comes by,
it alerts you.
It alerts you.
Gotcha.
So, and I use all my paranormal stuff for Bigfoot too. But anyways, that thing's going off. I just heard this sound. And so I sat up and I lay back down and something kicked the bed. Like the bed went boom. And then I just like, oh my God. And I just sat up and I just started screaming at her. I was like, Lisbeth, I'm trying to sleep. Leave me alone. And it stopped.
Wow.
5:26 the next morning. Started back up. I think it may have been time she woke up, or either that was the time she thought that she should wake me up.
Huh.
So I was scared.
That is
so
insane.
Then, like my buddy was in the shower, Bill Brock, he was in the shower. He didn't hear me screaming. Susan Slaughter was in the next room. She heard me screaming. She said it woke her up. And then Jay Prather, he was across the hallway and he was asleep. Well, Bill, as he came out the bathroom, I went back to bed. As he came out the bathroom, he said he'd seen his shadow go from one room to the next, from my room to Jay's room. And he come running in there to tell me that. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's Lisbeth. She's, being dumb right now. Just going back to bed. He's like, I'm already up. I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm going back to bed. I told him what happened, but I was actually scared, because it just a real negative feeling.
You mentioned a follow-up to Skunk Ape Lives. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's called Monster of the Myaka. Basically, me and Bill Brock and my buddy Stevie, my buddy Josh, and my buddy Emmett, we all had this encounter in 2013 after that Myaka footage came out. And we want to go back and see if we can have this encounter again. So we're going to, in this film, it's going to be a lot like the Skunk Ape Lives. I got 6 really good witnesses. They all have terrifying encounters. One guy believes he's been cursed, and you'll see why. But all these encounters, they're attacks. We've launched an Indiegogo campaign where we did one scene from it. And it's really, if you've seen the movie Exist, it's a whole lot like that. Like his encounter was terrifying. They were chased for like a mile on a 4-wheeler through the woods, and then the thing actually tried to come in the door on them. So it starts off basically like a road trip. We're going down to research this thing and try to find this creature again. And along the way, we stop and talk to these people who also had these encounters, and then at the end of the movie, we have our our hunt, our 7 days in the woods looking for the monster, looking for the skunk ape again, and seeing if we can finally get one on camera, like a good HD video, daytime, end all be all shots. That's what we're going for. I got 6 filmmakers on the project. The guy RPG I mentioned from Finding Bigfoot, he's on the project, and I'm just stoked because y'all talked about how good the Skunk Ape Lives was. This is gonna put this, it's not even in the same ballpark. So I'm super excited about it. But people can pre-order it now on Indiegogo, and I'll send you the link, and you can post that up, bud.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for joining us. This has been an amazing conversation. I want to invite everybody to go and watch the movie Skunk Ape Lives and learn more about Stacy on his YouTube channel, which we'll put in the show notes and on screen. Thanks again for being on the show. What a great conversation.
Amazing. No problem, bud. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, that was Stacy Brown Jr., the writer-director of Skunk Ape Lives. That was a great interview. Chris, Vic, do you have any final thoughts?
It's fascinating. These whenever you hear firsthand stories, like I always say, they sort of weave a fabric that, I think has a texture to it that you can really feel and you can really see, and you kind of come into their world, and you have no choice but to really kind of believe it in a way because of just how it's described and how their experience. This is no different. And when you put it together with, when you watch Skunk Ape Lives, there is something to this phenomenon. And I do kind of agree with Stacy when he says that maybe this is a paranormal mixed with a physical reality, that these things sort of manifest and then disappear again. But I hope he does get more proof on his follow-up.
Chris, do you have anything?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel, and I'm going to tell you what I find very interesting about this particular interview and kind of episode. This is the first time we've talked to somebody who we went and we watched their film, and here we are. We have him on the show, and it's almost like being starstruck a little bit. Here's this incredible production he's put together, and now we're talking to the artist and first the eyewitness of that produced it, and it was really exciting. He's great at talking about the events and telling the story, and really captivating to hear. So, that only comes from, I think, a deep authenticity. So, man, I just really appreciated having him on today, and I'm excited to see what he's up to next. Boy, he really is putting himself out there and doing it on behalf of all of us. So I appreciate that.
I want to thank everyone for joining us for this episode of The Creature Files. And we invite you to go to the website at mythicalwildlife.com and vote in our online poll. Is the skunk ape real or just a bear? Right? You can also report a sighting, and maybe it'll even wind up on the show. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/mythicalwildlife. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe by clicking below. We appreciate it. Thanks again. And until next time, always remember to heed your call to
adventure.
The Creature Files. It might just save your life.